This is Gene Bailey on screen. He is a televangelist, and he runs this show called Flashpoint. It's on Kenneth Copeland's Victory channel. Anyway, they do anything they can to further the goals of Donald Trump. They love him like he's a god. And a lot of the people that appear on this show even view him as the second coming of Jesus. Not with Jesus' personality. He's a different person than Jesus, but he's supposed to fulfill the same role as Jesus was when he came back, the Son of Man. Anyway, let's listen to what these people have to say. This isn't part one. If you didn't see the other, don't sweat it. This stands independently of the rest. I'll give context if it's missing. In the last one, he had George Pearson's on, which is Kenneth Copeland's son-in-law, and he prophesied this whole thing about they're doing a 21-day fast based on the book of Daniel chapter 10 or some other thing. You're supposed to give something up that you love for 21 days, like coffee. Anyway, he said goodbye to George, and now we're getting into the main episode here. So let's listen to what these nutter butters of epic proportions have to say. And while we do, we're going to play some Final Fantasy VII Remake. Should just be in the background. If you've never seen it before, won't bother you too much. All right, let's get into this bad boy, shall we?
You're not getting our program, you need to make sure you follow us on Rumble. That's rumble.com.
Oh, yeah, if you're not getting their program on the TV channel that they're on. Like, because, they air on TV. But if the TV wants to censor them or whatever, you can check them out on Rumble. Because these people are so persecuted and they're so censored.
/Flashpoint. You can always get our program there. We're being suppressed, and
of course, being suppressed. Yep.
Algorithms are not working for us. I get emails and texts from people on messages about they're not letting me know when y'all are live anymore. Well, this is the way to make sure you don't miss a thing.
Dude, this is such a cop-out. Oh, my God. Look, here's the thing. I assume they're talking about YouTube. I don't know. YouTube's algorithms have a mind of their own. I would venture as far as to say literally. It's just either it promotes you or it doesn't. It's not that you're being persecuted or whatever. I produced a video. It took me hours to research this thing, and I pulled up sources and everything. Oh my God, you have no idea how much time and effort I put into this video, right? Gets like 20,000 views in a day. And then I completely half-ass this video. I just pull up random voicemails and I listen to voicemails, which is entertaining to me. I love listening to voicemails, but it doesn't take much effort. Super low effort video. It got 300,000 views in a day. So you never know which video, the algorithm's going to censor. It's not based on the amount of work you put in. It's not based on whether they like you or whatever. It just is what it is. It has a mind of its own. These people are, of course, going to use it as the basis for the claim that they're persecuted terribly. Like, come on.
Follow us on Rumble. It's very simple. Rumble.com/Flashpoint. The channel is there. The shows are live there, as well as they are hosted there. Other videos are there. I think there's well over 400 videos there right now. You want to be a part. Follow us there. All right. Well, let's go to some news of what's been happening. U.S. Senate Leader Chuck Schumer just threatened to send the U.S. soldiers to fight Russia in eastern Ukraine.
I doubt it. I would eat my shoe if Chuck Schumer said that he intends to send U.S. soldiers to eastern Ukraine. Why would we? There's already a fighting force, an army over there fighting Russia. There's no we'd have no reason to do that. First of all. And second, we can just as easily send supplies and stuff. We don't have to put troops in the area. But okay, let's hear their twisted, ridiculous justification here.
The border bill isn't passed. Watch this.
Wait, if the border bill isn't passed, he's going to send the military to die, is what he's saying.
We're at a turning point in America. This bill is crucial, and history will look back on it and say, did America fail itself? Why is it crucial? Well, if we don't aid Ukraine, Putin will walk all over Ukraine. We will lose the war, and we could be fighting in Eastern Europe in a NATO ally in a few years. Americans won't like that. If we don't help Israel defend itself against Hamas, that perpetual war will go on and on and on. If we don't help humanitarian aid to the starving Palestinians in Gaza, hundreds of thousands could starve. And the border, everyone has said it's chaos. A speaker, you just saw Speaker Johnson, he said it's chaos. We have to do something legislative a few months ago. But what has happened, in answer your question, so this is crucial for America. It's a turning point.
Okay. It's interesting he brings this up. I have a really interesting clip to show you guys. All right. John McCain. You guys remember John McCain died, I don't know, 2018 or something like that. I think Trump was president when McCain died, and Trump basically refused to give McCain the honors to which he was owed as a veteran. McCain was a war hawk. He was a nutcase in a lot of ways, but he was honest, and he was a good man, ultimately. You know, McCain was captured in Vietnam and held as a prisoner there. And he was like the son of somebody important. I don't remember who it was, but his dad basically got him out. And McCain refused to leave until everybody could leave. McCain stayed. They broke both of McCain's arms, and he refused to leave because he wanted everybody else to leave with him, to walk out that door. Basically said, I'll be the last one out. That's honor. Right there. That is honor. McCain was incapable of raising his arms above his head after that because they were broken. Donald Trump made fun of him for that. McCain was an honorable person. Even though he's a war hawk, even though he's a nutcase, he was honorable, and he was honest. And he had insight into the way things work and the interests that various people have way better than anybody else that I've seen. Now, McCain had some insight into what he believed Russia was going to do. Back in 2014, Russia invaded Crimea. It was this little strip of land that was owned by Ukraine, and it was used for water or power generation. I don't remember exactly what it was used for. Some utility. And Russia comes in and claims Crimea. John McCain spoke on that. He spoke about what we should do, what Russia is doing, what their next moves will be, and all that other stuff at the time when this happened, when Russia attacked Crimea. Let me show you what McCain said, because it's almost like he had, I don't know, what would you like? He had foresight. He had what's the word? Premonitions, maybe. He could see the future. The point that I'm trying to get to by showing you this clip we're about to watch with John McCain is this is what Russia wants to do. This is the ultimate plan. Quick note before we continue, I want to let you know I just wrote a book. If you want to check it out, owenmorgan.com/book. It's a book about my experiences within Jehovah's Witnesses. It's completely understandable if you know nothing about Jehovah's Witnesses. And if you're a Christian, it's a good reference to use for why Jehovah's Witnesses are wrong about their interpretation of the Bible. The last chapter of the book is 100 questions that I have for the governing body. I'm selling the last chapter separately as its own separate guide if you guys want to get that too. So check it out, owenmorgan.com/book. I'd appreciate that. Now listen to what McCain said.
Looking at Russia, because you've also been a very strong advocate of tougher action against Russia, be it from the United States, be it from the European Union, be it from NATO. Now that there is this ceasefire plan and the hope is that it will hold, that probably is the best face-saving way out of this conflict, isn't it, both for Moscow and Kiev in Ukraine?
So we have, or at the time, we had a ceasefire action, right? This is 9 years ago. This is September 10th, 2014, when this clip came out.
Vladimir Putin's ambitions were very well known to me and to others. He knew that once Yanukovych left, he had to take Crimea because of Sevastopol. Then he tried the separatists.
I believe Yanukovych was the president of Ukraine before Zelensky became the president. I'm pretty sure of that. And he knew he had to take control, or I'm sorry, he knew he had to do something. He had to act after Yanukovych left, basically, because that was his opportunity.
Didn't work. He armed the separatists. That didn't work. So then he sent in thousands of Russian troops. The fact is that they were slaughtering Ukrainians. There were hundreds killed, thousands in the hospitals. It's terrible. Poroshenko had no choice but to agree to a ceasefire. What is going to happen? I predict to you that it will be another step in Vladimir Putin's strategy to separate eastern Ukraine from Ukraine, and perhaps...
Isn't that interesting? You catch that? Eastern Ukraine from Ukraine. That is literally exactly what Putin is doing right now. 2014, John McCain was having like a premonition practically. No, it wasn't a premonition. It wasn't foresight. It wasn't psychic readings or whatever. He knew what Vladimir Putin was thinking. He was in the military and was a leader in the military and had been tortured by enemies in the military and knew Putin, knew his mindset, knew how he felt about things, had worked on foreign policy for who knows how long. This guy would have been a far more qualified president by like a mile and a half than Donald Trump, of all people. So he says Putin's interest was to take eastern Ukraine, which is, in fact, what he tried to do. He failed. He couldn't take Kyiv, but that's what he wanted. He tried to take Luhansk and Donetsk, and I think that he succeeded in taking that. To my knowledge, I don't believe that Putin ever intended to take all of Ukraine. Not yet. Early on in the Ukrainian war, in the the Russia-Ukrainian war, Belarus, which is right next to Russia, run by, what's his name, Lukashenko. He's a dictator in Belarus, Lukashenko is. Lukashenko released a video, or an image, a still image of himself standing next to a map that showed troop movements going into Moldova. Moldova is the country right below Ukraine, and it was part of the old Soviet Union, I believe. We'll keep listening to what he says here.
Separate eastern Ukraine from Ukraine, and perhaps a land bridge to Crimea. No, it's a very bad result, and again, we would not send weapons to the Ukrainians when they were begging for them. We wouldn't even give them intelligence, because we didn't want to, quote, provoke Vladimir Putin. By showing weakness, we provoked Vladimir Putin.
Who do you mean by we? The United States? The United States working with the EU?
And of course the Europeans, but I wasn't surprised about the Europeans. I was deeply disappointed in the United States of America when they...
So when Russia invaded Crimea in 2014, Europeans and Americans completely stayed out of it, didn't give any kind of support, logistical or otherwise, nothing. We just pretended it wasn't happening, right? I think we officially came out as in favor of Ukraine and condemned what Putin was doing, but pretty much did nothing else.
They begged us for defensive weapons, and they wouldn't even do that. In fact, it was almost comical. They sent MREs.
Why?
That's food, meals ready to eat. You can cook them pretty quickly. They sent MREs.
Were you not surprised by the Europeans, you say, not taking sufficiently tough action against
Because
Putin?
they're dependent on Russian energy. It's obvious. It was obvious. And
that's why Europe didn't defend Ukraine earlier, because they're dependent on Russian energy, and they remain dependent on it. That's where Europe gets its gas, its heat for the winter. It was February when Putin started this war in Ukraine, and it was cold. It was winter. Europe needed that gas. So what did they do? Europe fired up some old coal plants and some nuclear energy plants to try to become less dependent on Russian gas, basically, and largely succeeded. McCain is accurately pointing out that Europe was too afraid to get involved because they were going to lose their heat for the year, basically, and they weren't going to have any way to, like, they weren't going to have any energy use.
In the United States, it was obvious that we weren't going to assist them, and because they don't want to, quote, provoke Vladimir Putin. And
that's why we didn't get involved in Crimea, in the Crimea conflict, because we didn't want to provoke Putin.
There's nothing that provokes Vladimir Putin more than weakness. We have to understand that Vladimir Putin's ambitions are the restoration of the old Russian Empire.
But he has never said, has he, that he wants eastern Ukraine to be incorporated into Russian territory?
What he has said is, well, just a few days ago, he said, I could take Kiev in 2 weeks. But what
he tried to. You remember that? Back in 2022, I think it was. He tried to take Kyiv, and he failed. He sent paratroopers in. I mean, it was close, but he failed. And then he made all kinds of claims that, like, Volodymyr Zelensky was hiding. He left. He went to America and everything, and Zelensky intentionally proved him wrong by taking video of him standing right out front, right in the, like, the, you know, the mansion or whatever it is.
What he has said is that he wants Nova Russia, which is an old Tsarist phrase, which means he wants eastern Ukraine. He wants to make sure he keeps Crimea, and he would like to see, if he can get away with it, Moldova and the Baltics as well.
You catch that? This dude is telling us something. He is telling us what Putin wanted and wants, and he's been accurate 100% through all of it. He was right about everything, McCain was. We have every reason to trust what he's saying here. So what exactly did McCain say Putin wants to do? After taking eastern Ukraine, if he can manage it, he wants to take Moldova, which is just south of Ukraine, and he wants to take the Baltics, Lithuania, Estonia, and there's a third one. I forget what the third one is. And after he takes, like, Lithuania and Estonia and all of that, the next thing in line would be to take, I think, Finland. Finland is directly above it, if I'm not mistaken. We have every reason to trust his interpretation here.
That's what he wants to see restored. He cannot afford to see a free, democratic, prosperous Ukraine, because the Russian people then would like to be like Ukraine.
The point is that he knew exactly what he was talking about. McCain knew exactly what he was talking about through all of it. That is what Russia wants, if you wondered.
History is...
Now, if Putin decides to follow through with that plan as outlined by McCain, NATO is almost certainly going to have to get involved. There may not be an option if he does some of that stuff. That is what Chuck Schumer was talking about in that video that he played a minute ago. He's basically saying, we do not want this. If you don't want NATO to have to be involved, as I don't want it to either, then you need to support Ukraine. You need to give it aid and stuff. We need to help. We need to cut this off the pass. And honestly, this is the best money the United States has ever spent in Ukraine. It's the best money the U.S. has ever spent. We are weakening a historical adversary. By the way, not somebody that I view as an adversary, somebody that he views as an adversary. Putin views himself as our adversary. We are using that money to weaken a historical adversary, and we're honestly paying nearly nothing, because all the money that we are spending is really being sent over in supplies. At least half of it is in supplies. We have no choice but to get rid of it, because it's kind of dated and aging out. Like every 5 years or so, we have to get rid of our supplies and like replace them. So the fact that we're sending those supplies to Ukraine instead of keeping them in the United States or throwing them in a trash can or whatever, that's money well spent. Couldn't possibly be spending our money better than we are right now. And in the process, it's at least contributing to the possibility that maybe NATO will not have to get involved if Russia gets too, not optimistic, but what's the word? If Russia gets too ambitious, that's it. So anyway, best money that we could possibly spend. I understand people are asking me to make the other video bigger. This is just my style. This is the way that I do things. This is similar to many other people's style. I sit here and play video games with people. I understand some people don't really like it, but this is just the style that I hold. You know, this is the style that I adhere to. So basically, Chuck Schumer, just to kind of bring it back to where it was, Chuck Schumer said, if we don't help Ukraine right now, then we're going to have to send NATO troops over to prevent them from coming into, Eastern Europe. And that's totally true. McCain predicted that this would happen, and he was right about everything. So, yeah, absolutely. He's absolutely correct.
Eastern Europe and a NATO ally in a few years. Americans won't like that. If we don't help Israel defend itself against Hamas, that perpetual war will go on and on.
Wait, why would we help Israel? I don't understand. Israel seems to be doing just fine committing a genocide by themselves. They don't need our help committing a genocide. You know, they're effectively doing exactly what Russia is doing to Ukraine. Completely unjustifiably attacking somebody who does not deserve it. Just a people group that doesn't deserve it. They're attacking innocent citizens. I mean, they're committing war crimes, terrible war crimes. Is disgusting, straight up wrong. So yeah, we should be helping Ukrainians. We should not be contributing to the genocide taking place in Israel.
On and on. If we don't help humanitarian aid to the starving Palestinians in Gaza, hundreds of thousands could starve.
I'll take that. Sure. Yes.
And the border. Everyone has said it's chaos. You just saw Speaker Johnson. He said it's chaos. We have to do something legislative a few months.
Okay, the border is not chaos. Let me tell you what's happening at the border right now. I just really want to dissect this. The border being chaotic is a propagandistic claim that is made every single election. People constantly, like Republicans specifically, constantly talk about how bad the border is, and oh my God, it's a mess, and what are we going to do? The border isn't bad. It's porous, I'll give you that. There are people on the border that are coming through. They're coming from Mexico to the United States. Do you know why that is? Do you know why there's a hole there? Do you know why we don't have a fence that prevents people from just waltzing right through? Because the people that are coming through are not immigrants, they're refugees. And by international law, we must create a humanitarian corridor for refugees to make it to a refugee center to apply for asylum status. We must. That is who's coming over the border right now, refugees. The border is not this huge mess that they want to make it out to be. It's absurd, and it's embarrassing and wrong that they're doing this. What was it that Jesus said? I feel it's on the tip of my tongue. Didn't Jesus say something about loving the least of his family? The people who suffer the most should be taken care of, something to that effect. What was it? I feel like there's like a parable about goats and sheep or something. You gave water to me when I was thirsty, food to me when I was hungry, so on and so forth. And they said, when did we do that for you? And he said, what you did to the least of my brothers and sisters, or the least of my family, depending on the translation, you did to me. What happened to all of that? I thought this is a Christian nation, quote unquote. What happened to being a Christian nation? You know, they never cared about any of that. It was never on their mind. They never gave a shit. All they cared about was propagandizing and hating and getting people whipped into a blood frenzy so that they can win elections. That's it. That's all there is to it. And it's absolutely disgusting, truthfully. So, about the border. It's not a mess, the way people want to make it out. Yes, there are a lot of people coming over the border right now. That's how humanitarian corridors work. First time in the world, first time involved in politics to any degree.
Ago. But what has happened, and answer your question, so this is crucial for America. It's a turning point. History is going to look over our shoulders and say, did we rise to the occasion? To his credit, Mitch McConnell did. But too many Republicans, including Speaker Johnson, are just scared to death of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has said he wants chaos. Donald Trump has said, well, wait till I become president. That'll take at least a year.
Yep, he said, don't let Biden do anything with the border because I want to, make border policy or whatever. Donald Trump said that. Republicans complaining and crying and screaming about the border. And Donald Trump said, don't do anything. Don't pass any bills. Don't nothing. Because I want to come in and fix it. I want to be the savior. I think Biden basically said, what was the thing that he wanted to do? Yeah, it was a bipartisan immigration bill. You remember how Donald Trump has been saying since day one that Obama has really been pulling the strings? And he's the one that's communicating with Congress and making deals, and he's running everything, pulling strings behind the scenes, blah, blah, blah. Well, Donald Trump comes in and actually does that. He actually comes in and actually tries to make Congress do this or that or whatever. He tries to force Congress to bend to his will and succeeds. Congress had a bipartisan bill to give Biden emergency powers to change this or that at the border. I don't remember what the bill was all about. I don't feel like looking it up right now. Biden was prepared to, make changes at the border. People freaking out about how many people are coming over the border. Okay, we can fix that. We can change it. And Trump says no. And Congress said, okay. I don't want to hear any more nonsense about Obama pulling strings behind the scenes. He's not. He never was. Every time there's some claim made by the right, particularly by Donald Trump, it's almost always something they're doing. Have you ever noticed that? I love how you just ignored Barrett's take cover plan and went after it. Yeah, I'm not paying much attention to the game. I'm just doing whatever. I've played it a couple of times. Really, really good game, but I can't devote much attention to it because, I'm listening to Nutter Butters spread Nutter Buttery all over everything. The point is that Donald Trump is pulling strings behind the scenes, has always been pulling strings behind the scenes, and does not want things fixed. He never did. Donald Trump wants chaos. In fact, the Republican politicians, the senators, the House members, they want chaos. They want things to be a mess, obviously. They might as well come out and said it. And once they're elected, they can blame the mess on the Democrats. When they're elected, they can either come in and fix the mess or just stop talking about it entirely.
Ukraine could be gone. The border will get much worse. War in the Middle East will get worse, maybe bringing us into it. He's doing it all for political reasons. And let me just say, will senators, the crucial question, the $64,000 question, the majority of Republican senators know this bill is the right thing to do. It's a compromise. I don't like everything in it. Neither does McConnell. But it's a compromise. That's the only way you get things important done in this.
That's true. That's politics. You want politics to function at all, ever, to any degree in the United States or anywhere else, honestly, you have to compromise. You have to work with people. Absolutely. I don't even remember what's in the bill. I should probably look this up, but we'll see. We'll see if he explains it. So if you remember, we started down this whole road, this conversation in the first place, because Gene Bailey and the other people on Flashpoint claimed that McConnell was threatening to send people to war in Ukraine against Russia unless they get their blah, 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 blah. I mean, why are they even complaining about the border bill in the first place? First of all, don't they want the border bill? Don't they want to, quote unquote, fix whatever they think is wrong at the border? And second, that's very obviously not what's his name was even saying. That's not what Schumer was even saying. Not that he has the power to do that.
Neither does McConnell, but it's a compromise. That's the only way you get things important done in the Senate. We proved that 2 years ago in our bipartisan legislation. And will the senators drown out the political noise from Trump and his minions and do the right thing for America? It's a crucial question. History is looking down on every one of us right now.
All right, so
Totally agreed. So Donald Trump specifically instructed senators and House members that are Republicans not to allow this border bill to pass. I need to find out what the border bill is. Immigration is extremely valuable for the country. It's foolish to ignore, or it's foolish to not allow immigrants in. We should open the floodgates, let in as many as we possibly can. It's valuable to the United States. You know, population has peaked in the world probably, or it's getting near it. And it's going to start going down worldwide, China and everywhere else. If the United States wants to stay on top, we need to start bringing immigrants in now. Statement from President Joe Biden on the bipartisan Senate border security negotiations. For too long, we all know the border's been broken. Well, not really. I mean, the main problem is that people don't have a way to... they don't have a path to citizenship. Once they get into the United States, it's difficult or impossible to become a citizen, number one. And number two, we should create that humanitarian corridor and allow people in so that they can request refugee status at a refugee center legally. Instead, Texas is putting razor wire in the water to cut people to ribbons and has literally killed people who tried to reach the asylum center. That's why 2 months ago I instructed my team to begin negotiations with a bipartisan group of senators to seriously and finally address the border crisis. For weeks now, that's what they've done, working around the clock through the holidays and over weekends. Let's be clear. What's been negotiated would, if passed into law, be the toughest and fairest set of reforms to secure the border we've ever had in our country. It would give me, as president, a new emergency authority to shut down the border when it becomes overwhelmed. And if given that authority, I would use it the day that I signed the bill into law. I don't believe that Biden thinks that this is a problem, that the border is a problem. I don't think the border is a problem at all. And I think what we need to do is dramatically increase the number of judges required to, process people who come over the border. Add extra, asylum seeking refugee centers or whatever. Add new centers where people can be housed if need be to, until they're processed or whatever. There are things that could be done that I would be okay with that don't involve shutting the border down or hurting anybody else. So sure, okay, you know what? Biden wants to make it clear that he cares about the border too, just like Trump claims to. All right, I get it. That's a political strategy, fine. But the border is not a wreck the way they portray it. He says he would shut the border down the day that it was signed into law. Further, Congress needs to finally provide the funding I requested in October to secure the border. This includes an additional 1,300 Border Patrol agents, 375 immigration judges. I would love to see more immigration judges. 1,600 asylum officers. I would love that too. That'd be fantastic. And over 100 cutting-edge inspection machines to help detect and stop fentanyl at our southwest border. Fentanyl isn't really coming over the border. It's not coming through that direction. But okay, sure, whatever. You want to do that? Great. They shouldn't be trying to stop fentanyl's flow into the country. They should, they should take the wind out of the sails of the drug war in the first place. Instead of killing the supply, try to kill the demand. And I have some ideas for that I don't feel like getting into right now. For everyone who's demanding tougher border control, this is the way to do it. If you're serious about the border crisis, pass a bipartisan bill and I will sign it. That's what Biden said. That is on whitehouse.gov. That is an official statement from Joe Biden himself. And what happened? Donald Trump instructed members of Congress not to do it, not to sign it, not to take part. He wants to solve the problem. He doesn't want Biden solving. He doesn't want the problem solved. He wants a win. That's it. And it's just like transparent disgusting, honestly. God, it's just like, how can they justify being scumbags to this degree? Specifically Trump. How can he justify this? It's just gross. And what do Trump's acolytes come out here and say? What do his sycophants come out and say? They say they're threatening, they being their Democrats. Trump's sycophants say the Democrats are threatening to send us to war with Ukraine if we don't sign their bill for the border. Like, what? Where did you get any of that? That is absurd. Everything about it. These people are shameless liars. It's just disgusting, man. Honestly, it is disgusting. These people are disgusting. So let me just step back a little bit and listen to what they said originally. We're not going to listen to Chuck Schumer again, but just listen to his characterization of what Schumer said.
Videos there right now. You want to be a part. Follow us there. All right. Well, let's go to some news of what's been happening. U.S. Senate Leader Chuck Schumer just threatened to send the U.S. soldiers to fight Russia in eastern Ukraine if the border bill isn't passed. Watch this.
Why don't you want the border bill passed? I don't understand. And no, he didn't. He was just talking about Ukraine and what's happening over there. My God, these people are so shameless. It's disgusting. Truly disgusting. What is wrong with them? Let's jump forward now that we understand the context. These people are shameless. Now let's listen to Trump prophet Hank Kunneman tell us what his prophetic perspective is on this.
It's a crucial question. History is looking down on every one of us right now.
All right, so history's looking down on every one of us, gloom and doom here. But Pat,
really, the Republicans on here, the Trump nutcases, are telling us about how he's being too gloomy and doomy. Are you kidding me?
Mr. Hank, when you hear this, what he said at the very end there is really what he wanted to say, Trump and his minions. I'll give you first shot at that. Go ahead.
Well, let's talk about Chucky and his little minions, okay?
Wait, why are we talking about that? Why are we not just addressing what he said about the border bill and fighting in Ukraine? I have no idea why he's talking about Chucky's minions or whoever.
I'll give you first shot at that. Go ahead.
Well, let's talk about Chucky and his little minions, okay? This is all about their fear of Donald Trump coming back into a place of power, and those of us...
What is he talking... What is all about Donald Trump coming to power? What did he say that had anything to do with Trump winning the election? I'm just lost.
who are awakened in this country that realize that what Chucky just said is ridiculous. First and foremost, what are we doing in the Ukraine? Why are we sending billions of dollars? Why are we involving ourselves? What kind of handshakes? What deals have been done underneath the table, Chucky and your minions? Because really, this is not about Ukraine. This is about the United States border that is open, that is allowing terrorists to come at...
All right, I know this means absolutely nothing to Hank Kunneman, but if Russia expands and takes Ukraine, Russia is a dictatorship. If it takes Ukraine, it's going to be on the border of a NATO country, and it's pretty obvious, seems obvious to me, that Putin wants to take more territory. He wants to take the old USSR back. He wants to take Poland. He, at the very least, wants the Baltics, Latvia, Estonia, and whatever the third Baltic country is, I forget. And that's a stone's throw from Finland. So Russia is expanding out, and before you know it, if Russia had its way, if Putin had his way, and if we weren't holding the line in Ukraine, Putin... He kind of already owns Georgia, the country of Georgia, which borders Russia, and I think it borders Turkey, which is another NATO country, by the way. So there's a buffer right now. There's like a DMZ, if you will. Georgia and Ukraine and the Baltic states and some other places. Those are the places that Putin wants to take, and he's going to run right up against the NATO countries. Assuming he even stops there. I would honestly, I think Putin has cancer. I'm pretty sure I read that in the news recently. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But either way, I don't think Putin has anything left to lose. I don't think he cares. You know, some people don't do something because they don't want their personal reputation to be ruined, or they don't want to put their lives at risk or whatever. Yeah, Putin doesn't care, I don't think. I'm so lost. Who is Chucky? Who is Schumer? Chuck Schumer, for the Canadians out there, he's just a senator. He's just one of the senators, one of the 100 senators. There are 2 for each state. I think he's a New York State senator, and he's the minority party leader. No, we control the Senate, so he's the majority leader. So he's basically the leader of the Senate right now. Whichever party has the most people in the Senate is the one that controls it. And the second in command is called the majority whip. Majority leader, majority whip. Schumer is a majority leader. So he presents bills and suggests things and does negotiations and has his whip go around and try to get votes from the other party members for this or that. He brings bills to the floor. So that's who Chuck Schumer is. And he's historically absolutely detested by Republicans. Why? Just because. There's no good reason. Don't poke holes. So the whole Ukraine thing, it's the best money we have ever spent to hold Russia off at the pass. Prevent them from going any further than they have already. Prevent them from taking eastern Ukraine or Kyiv or Moldova or the Baltics or anything else. We do not want them on NATO land. If they attack a NATO country, we have to defend that NATO country. We are obligated to go in, send our troops in, and fight whoever attacked that NATO country. If Russia comes at Poland, we are obligated to come in and help them. Putin spent a lot of time and money, seemingly, convincing Trump that NATO was bad. Trump was talking about pulling out of NATO by the end of his term, and then he lost. and Biden got in, and Putin was like, all right, forget it. Well, I guess I can't convince Trump to pull out of NATO because he's not in control anymore, so I'm just going to go in and do this. If he had convinced Trump to pull out of NATO, the United States wouldn't have done anything when he invaded Ukraine. The United States wouldn't have contributed at all, and likely would have gone on to attack Poland. The problem is if the United States pulls out of NATO, NATO is basically dissolved. Because we are the world power in the United States that has the army. I mean, France contributes some army, members. Germany contributes some army members, and Poland and other people, they contribute, and they pay dues to stay in NATO and everything. But the United States is really NATO. I think NATO has 2.2 million troops. I forget. And the U.S. has 1.5 million. Should give you some context there. We do joint training sessions together and all kinds of stuff. If Trump pulled out of NATO, NATO would no longer be able to take on Russia if Russia went after like Poland or something. That's the point. So these people are invested in convincing everybody, all of their listeners, that Putin isn't such a bad guy. Russia isn't such a bad place, even though it's a dictatorship and Putin's a dictator. And NATO is worthless. Why would we get involved overseas? We have nothing to do with what's happening overseas. We should just stay out of it. Now, we should defend our NATO allies if they're attacked. It's the treaty that we signed after World War II, I think. This is just like, can it get more obvious that Putin's got his fingerprints all over this? Like, who in their right mind would not want NATO to exist? It's a defensive pact. If Turkey's attacked, we come to Turkey's defense. If we're attacked, Turkey comes to our defense. If we attack somebody, nobody in NATO is obligated to get involved. Not until they're on our soil. Not until they're on Poland's soil, Turkey's soil. Why does Putin want to break up NATO? Weird, right? Anyway, that's the context that you might have needed to understand what was being said here.
Have been done underneath the table, Chucky and your minions, because really this is not about Ukraine. This is about the United States border that is open, that is allowing terrorists to come at an accelerated rate.
Okay, it's not about Ukraine. Great, fine, whatever. It's not about Ukraine. Chuck Schumer literally just offered a bill. What the hell are you doing? Do you want the border to be closed or not? I mean, this is completely made up, this whole terrorist thing. But do you want it to be fixed or not? If you want it to be fixed, get your people to sign the bill. I don't understand why this is so difficult for him.
And it's about America first. Think about this, Pastor Gene. They're limiting it in this bill, okay, to 5,000 a day. What are they going to do? Get
limiting what?
A raffle and see which one their number falls on, then you can come over the border. This is ridiculous.
What the hell are you talking about? As I mentioned earlier, there must be a humanitarian corridor available for refugees to come into the country. Like if they're from war-torn areas and they've been terribly mistreated, children are now orphans, that kind of thing. There has to be a humanitarian corridor for the people to be able to pass through, to get to a, to get to a refugee center. There must be. So I guess Hank Kunneman, having apparently read the bill that was proposed, says he doesn't want 5,000 people to be allowed in. And how would you even do that? Well, I haven't really thought about how we do it, but it's, limiting people coming in over the border. Don't you want that? Why is he complaining about this? You know why he's complaining about this in all seriousness? Do you know why Hank Kunneman is whining about what the border bill said. Because he doesn't want the problem fixed either. He knows Trump doesn't want the problem fixed, so he doesn't want the problem fixed. That's why. Like, it's so transparently partisan. This guy has no interest in... There's no principle to be found here. None. You know, Hank did nothing but complain about the border. The border, the border, the border, the border. Biden says, all right, let's fix it. And he says, I don't want to fix it. No, that you're doing it wrong, so we're not going to do it at all. Grow up, Hank, and stop lying to people and telling them that you can cure their cancer.
Listen, there needs to be closed borders. You come to this country legally, bottom line. And lastly, we should not be manipulated by these Democrats or rhinos that are trying to make Ukraine part of the deal. That is ridiculous. America first. And I thank God for Donald Trump. That's his policy.
Dude, this is shameless. This is shameless. This guy is an embarrassment. Russia is a historical adversary. They view us as an adversary. We are replenishing our stockpiles by sending them over to Ukraine. It is the best money we have ever spent to send aid to Ukraine. This guy is just looking for a reason to hate the bill. This is just embarrassing.
That's his heart and his focus, and that's where America needs to stand along with Texas.
All right, man. All right, Andrew, I'll give you a chance at that. I mean, he's tying our border to this war with Ukraine and Russia. What do you think is the right answer here?
He's not tying it to anything. Like, was there even a clause in there about Ukraine? Aside from all of that, Ukraine will get aid one way or another. Like, that's part of the deal. That's how this works. But they picked on one little thing that they didn't like and threw it all out. This is a prime example of Republicans not giving a shit about anything. All they want is to get their way. That's it. They don't want compromise. They want their way or nothing else. Well, I got news for you. If Donald Trump does win the election, I doubt it, but if he does, it's almost a guarantee, in my opinion, that he's going to lose the Senate and the House. So he's not going to be able to do anything without compromise, without working with people. It's not happening. These people pretend compromise is like evil and wrong and immoral and God would hate it and all this other junk. This is how politics works. Compromise. Things that you don't like, things that I don't like. First time involved in politics? I mean, that sounds like the end. This is just insane, man. Let me know what you think about these people in the comments. This is just crazy.